I have to remember not to swear within the first 6 seconds or YouTube's gonna demonetize this stream. Not that I'm getting monetized right now anyways, but what's up everyone? How are we doing? Please tell me in chat if everything is working because I'm already assuming that it's probably not. Thank you for smack talking me. Great motivation to get started. So how is everyone doing? Man, we got so much HHN stuff to talk about. I'm so excited. I've been waiting for this stream all week because I have so many things to say, so many opinions, so much cool stuff to think about and talk about. So how has everyone been doing? How do we feel about these announcements? What are we most hyped for? Oh wait, I have to do this real quick. Maybe hopefully everything still works. Hey, Derek, welcome. Will, Josh, Ian, who else we got? Welcome, everyone. I am so stoked that you guys were waiting here for me. Honestly, it means a lot. What are we talking about for trio sweep? I'm out of the loop, and also I'm a little bit flustered because I've been working on this stream for like 5 hours, so I don't know what's going on. Solid start so far. Okay, let me just check. Everything seems like it's still working, so we're gonna call it a day right now. We're gonna assume that everything is going. Hi, Mom. I'm glad everything is working. All right. So let me try and get my notes pulled up here because, like I said, I have a lot that I wanted to talk about today. First off, this is going to be a no negativity stream. I've seen a lot of people kind of I don't want to say slamming some of these originals, but like a lot of people aren't as excited as I am. And I don't know. I think all 6 of these originals have a lot of great potential to build off of everything that we've seen in the past and elaborate on them. And from everything I've heard, it seems like HHN has gotten a budget increase this year, which, yeah, let's go. Which I think is exactly what the event needed. Plus, we've got, we've got new tents this year. I will take 2 more tents over 2 parade locations any day of the year, any day of the week. All right. So, a few things we're going to go over here today. First off, I'm going to just talk a little bit about HHN this year, a few of my thoughts on the event as a whole, icons, maybe, who knows, stay tuned. And then we're going to get into what my personal hype list is for each of these haunts, explore what we may or may not know a little bit more, or kind of what we could possibly expect, and we'll just chat and have a good time and see what we can do. Welcome, Colby. Triplets of Terror. Yes, we're going to talk a lot about Triplets of Terror, I'm hoping. Agree. Josh with the 10s. Emperor Sephiroth, welcome. The fact that we have no originals, IPs. The fact that we have more originals over IPs makes everything better. Yes. And Ian Murphy, Trio of Terror. Yes. Lots and lots of exciting things to say here. First off, I don't even know what to pull up first. We're just going to do this HHN, whatchamacallit. I have way too many things. So if you guys haven't been on these streams recently or in a while, my friend Josh, who's somewhere in this chat, he has made this incredible HHN head-to-head website where you can not only rank your favorite haunted houses, kind of like a community thing, so we can get a definitive ranking of what the best haunted houses are ever at HHN, but he just added a hype list feature and a hype page, which we're going to take a look at live for the very first time right here, so woo! So yeah, I'm gonna fill this out later on in the stream after we've gone through my thoughts, but if the link for this isn't in the description right now, I'll post it here in just a second. But feel free to fill this out for your guys' self because I want to see what everyone else thinks about what we're hyped for other than Trio of Terror, which I'm glad a lot of other people are. And also, hello, girl from Duckville. I see you. Just taking a look at these rankings that are on here right now, I can tell you these are kind of close to what I have, but not completely. It's going to be a little bit different. Let's see. I need another monitor. Talking about icons and everything this year, do I have any idea what the icon is going to be? Absolutely not. So I'm also 0 for 6 for these haunt announcements so far. So my track record isn't very good, but I think it's still fun to talk about what we could see and I want to talk about one icon in particular that I've heard a lot of people thinking is going to be coming back, but I do not think so. And that is going to be my favorite icon of all time, and my favorite year of all time, Lady Luck. So if you guys didn't go to 2011, I'm not going to go into the whole big lore, backstory, everything about it, but the overarching theme, kind of like how Dr. Oddfellow last year was in all of the scare zones and kind of had his own little presence felt in those, the way it was for Lady Luck when she appeared in 2011 was that, also this might be a trivia question in a future episode, so pay attention everyone, her presence was that every character that was the quote-unquote main character in one of those haunted houses had a choice to make, and they all ended up making the wrong choice, which led them to the scenarios that we experienced in those haunted houses. And just from reading the very short blurbs that we have so far, granted there's not a lot to go off, but I don't necessarily see if that how that concept could necessarily tie into these 6 houses that we have. A lot of their stories seem pretty self-contained so far from what we've seen, and I also just don't see a lot of the Lady Luck imagery that I would have expected us to have seen by now. I think something along the lines of Fear, or at least Fear's influence, is a little more likely. I don't think Fear himself is going to be the icon. The only caveat I guess I have to that is if it's a prequel year, or if it's a year that doesn't necessarily take place in the linear HHN canon, however you want to super nerd it out, because I can't. So maybe if this is seeing how he rose to power, or how his influence at HHN started, that's maybe something, but I also think we might be getting a new icon. We kind of got something new with Dr. Oddfellow last year, when it was more of a expansion on a previous character. And I think this year, maybe it's time to finally do something new. Because, I mean, I can't even remember the last time we had a brand new icon that was completely fleshed out with backstory and everything. Because, I mean, Chance had appeared before in 2016. 27, 28, 29 didn't really have much, so it's been a minute. Let me pop in chat real quick. Colby, excited for Goblin. Yeah, we're going to talk about Goblin here in a little bit. I'm excited for Goblin. Mary, welcome. You haven't missed much so far. Just talking about icons and how I don't think it's going to be Fear or Lady Luck. So nothing too crazy yet. Also, I agree, Josh. Hoping for a new character, and I hope they get their own scare zone. I agree. I kind of want Sting Alley to be in scare zone again, to be honest, but that's just kind of my own little hot take. Now, let's see. Do I have anything else? Another thing that I want to, I don't necessarily say predict, but one staple of HHN that we have not seen in the last, 2 or 3 years since 2021 is the spinning tunnel, the revolving tunnel that was that staple of all the 3D houses or any of the zany ones. I am putting my cards on the table, or however you want to phrase it, that we are going to get that tunnel back in some way, shape, or form this year. Do I know which house it's going to be in? I don't necessarily know. I was kind of sold that it would be in the Darkest Deal somewhere last year, and again, that didn't turn out. But I'm going to make that bold claim that we will see the spinning tunnel return. And if I'm wrong, well, crucify me. Mary hoping for Boris to be an icon this year? Yeah, I would love to see Boris, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's in the cards for me. I need to stop using that phrase. But I don't think there's, I love Boris. I would love nothing more than a Case Files, Legendary Truth, Boris Schuster. Like, I would love an entire year of just that. But I don't necessarily know if that's the direction we've been going in this year. Because not only do we kind of have to establish this entity that we've seen in this Fear Cannot Be Contained teaser, whatever you want to call it, which, by the way, Fear Cannot Be Contained is just a very, very, very common catchphrase, so I don't think that's necessarily a clue to Fear. But you know, in this teaser that we've seen, not only do we have to then kind of set up whatever this entity is down here, we also have to kind of set up, also this is a Hollywood video, but same thing. But we also kind of have to set up then Boris Schuster and his backstory, and it seems like a little too overstuffed for what HHN is currently doing. Maybe in the future, yes. Maybe down the road we kind of get back to those super heavy years like 2008 where there was just so much information on the website and so many Easter eggs that you could find, but I don't think we're getting set up for something like that this year. Unfortunately. Girl from Dr. Phil, I think it's gonna be a smaller icon. Yeah, who knows, honestly, man. I would love just any type of icon. I think icons are highly, highly underrated, and they are kind of the glue to the event for me. They're just, I love icons so much. So whether we get something big, something small, I don't care. You can bet I'm gonna be stoked if we get anything like that at all. Ian Murphy, see the tunnel in Major Suites. I was thinking maybe either Suites or Museum, but we'll have to see. Yeah, Josh, I always have Lady Luck on the mind. Like, I love 2011. And we're about to get in my hype list here real quick in just a second. I have two more things I want to talk about after I go off of this tangent. But another thing that I think is just really important for everyone to kind of keep in mind as we go through these announcements is and as this event starts, back in the day, HHN didn't have 10 houses. When I started going, it had 8, and I was lucky that we had that many. I mean, obviously it started with 1 the first year, and a majority of the late 90s, early 2000s were 5 or 6, I believe. So for us to get 10 houses is like so good. But with that being said, everybody already knows 2011 is my favorite year. It's the only year where I feel like every single haunt was at least like B tier, if not A tier or higher. Like, perfection. Like, think of whatever your favorite house was last year, and that was like all of 2011 in my opinion. So this year, if we have 8 good houses and 2 that are completely god-awful, that is still better than my favorite year of all time. That is still 2 extra stinkers, 2 extra experiences that at least the creative team can maybe try something new or learn from them if they're failures, but this is just kind of the way I look at it. We get 8 good houses, I'm happy. The extra 2, do whatever you want. Make them experiments, they can be bad, they can be, but if we get 8 good houses, which I'm fairly confident we're gonna get this year, I'm a happy camper. Also, I just wanted to shout out Spookster. I don't know if he's in here, chat or not, but he's one of the people in our Discord. He's one of my first friends I made from this channel at HHN. He's probably even a bigger HHN fan than me, honestly, but he's been going through some medical issues recently over the last week, so everyone just keep him in your thoughts, send him a positive shout out, you know. We're a community here. We want to make sure everyone is able to experience HHN to the fullest. So I'm glad that he was able to discover these issues and get them taken care of a few months before the event starts. But still, I wanted to publicly give him wish him a speedy recovery. And everyone in this community, let's make sure that we build each other up and we're here for each other. Let's see. What was the one other thing? Oh yeah, one other thing that I do want to predict, my second bold claim, I need to get like sound effects or something, but my second bold claim that I'm going to be making for this year is I think we're going to get GATs back. And for those of you who don't know, GATs, guest activated triggers, they're exactly what they sound like. You walk through a haunted house, you press a button, it activates something, whether it's a special effect, water cannon, air blast. I think we're past the point of the times that we will not talk about. And I think combined with potential budget increases and just the way that the event's growing, I think GATs are going to be back this year. Big GATs, or like a lot of them, I don't necessarily know, but I think we are going to get at least a handful of them. All right. Let me pop in chat real quick. To make sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get any. I agree, Colby. I don't think we're going to get any announcements until June. I'm not going to also I'm also not going to really talk about the IPs until we get to the end of the stream. I'll touch base a little bit on what I think they are and kind of elaborate on them, because I've talked more about those in past streams because there's more, you know, concrete stuff to speculate about than these little images on the spec map that we didn't know much about. But I want to talk about the originals and what I've heard and what I've seen and just what I think first. Yeah, Josh, the one in Chucky I don't really kind of count because it just, no, like, it was there, but I don't even think on our unmasking, or at least on my unmasking tour for that our guide even mentioned it. Like, I don't think it was, yeah, it was just one of those things that was there, and I want to get good ones. Yes, bet we have one in Sweets. Let's go. Colby, I agree about that with the ton of Easter eggs in the museum. Let me get some stuff pulled up here real quick. Amanda, tell a joke in the chat while I'm pulling this up. All right. Oh, let me do this real quick. So we're gonna make a very, very, very professional tier list that is definitely the most professional thing I've ever made. Why is... Okay. So that way we can rank up kind of what these haunts are. We're going to start with my most hype, go into a little bit of detail about that, and then we're going to go down to the one I'm least excited for, which is still a pretty high level of excitement. So, I know you guys are on like a 20-second delay from me, so we'll see if I wait that long, but who wants to take a crack at what you think my most anticipated haunt this year is? Well, I should say most anticipated original, because we only know the originals, but also I'm normally more hyped for originals than IPs, so, with the exception of last year, so I guess that's kind of a given. Blue paint, got him. I thought my jokes were bad.
I tried.
Are you excited for the Little People actors returning? Yeah, honestly, they're awesome. Like, I'm stoked. Trio Sweep, I see you, Ian. Slaughter Cinema 2? Not yet. No one's gotten it yet. Let's see, I'm gonna wait just a second. I don't want to bore everyone. But I think the haunt I am most anticipated for is the museum. Deadly Artifacts or something, I can't remember. Something along those lines, I don't remember. Deadly Exhibits, I think that's what I said. Anyways, the way I look at this is Case Files, which is what, my number 3 favorite haunt out of 115. The In Between, which is my number 10 out of 115 as far as you guys currently know. That's going to be changing when I redo this countdown series later next month. But combine those two, museum's gonna be solid. Me and Josh, say, I knew Josh was gonna post something as soon as I looked over there. Museum is gonna be so good, or at least I'm hoping so. Now, for you guys who haven't been up to date on the announcements, I should have these blurbs pulled up somewhere. I'm gonna do that on my phone real quick, so that way I can read them and then tell you guys what my thoughts are. Let's see. Josh, even if it's just a copy of the Cedar Point Wax Museum houses, I'll be happy, but it's going to be even better. Yeah. I didn't even kind of think about how it could look like Waxworks from Knott's, now that you mention it. That might actually be cool. But I think it's going to be a little more, like, in between. Let me get the blurb here pulled up. We're going to see which one pops up. Let's see. All right, the museum, Deadly Exhibits. You decide to visit the new I cannot talk. This is gonna be a long stream. My God. You decide to visit the new folklore museum exhibit, the Rotting Stone, where an evil escapes from within, destroying everything in its path. So some of the other vibes I kind of get from that are the Lunatic's Playground, You Don't Stand a Chance. Even though that was an absolutely trash house, it's kind of talked about, you know, how we were going to explore the alternate reality of Chance's theater of the mind. So when I read about this Rotting Stone transforming everything, I kind of picture something like that, where everything looks normal and then maybe black lights pop up and everything changes. If you guys are theme park enthusiasts or know anything about other Disney parks, there's a ride in Hong Kong Disneyland, which is their version of Haunted Mansion, I believe it's Hong Kong, called Mystic Manor, and it's kind of something like that, where the museum exhibits come to life and are doing a little wacky things. Obviously, it's more kid-friendly, but I kind of envision a cross between those two. You know, these exhibits get corrupted by evil. Maybe they end up turning into something like this evil version of the archway that we have. So you kind of get those in-between vibes with that, where it's kind of like another dimension, but it's the same dimension. I don't know. I hope this is all making sense, because I'm very excited for this haunt. This is like everything that I could ever dream for. Excuse me. Hop to chat. Monstrous is going to be at least lit. We're going to talk about Monstrous here in a minute, Will, but if they can match Hollywood, I'll be very impressed. Ian, I love knots, so waxwork references, I got you on the knots references. I need to make a video. Actually, I need to do a poll here in a second, but what do you think will be the scariest out of the three? Give me a second to think on that, Colby, and I'll be there. And yeah, I agree, Josh. There's going to be lots of Easter eggs, I'm fairly certain. It's kind of why I mentioned the case files comparison, because there was just so many layers of stuff in that haunt. Now, something else I did notice, I didn't do this with the other logos because they seem pretty self-explanatory, but I did actually, let's see if this works, I did actually brighten up the logo for this one, and I don't know how well you guys can see it on your end, but in the center, this is kind of what I'm assuming the rotting stone is going to look like. There's a few things that it kind of looks like, but I'm going to leave it up to everyone else's interpretation for if you think anything is officially correct or officially wrong. The three things that pop into my mind, first off, are the lantern. Let me see. I really need a third monitor. I do too much with this. Yeah. I think the lantern is definitely something, kind of looks similar. Let's see. You guys can see how many things I have open. So yeah, the shapes are kind of similar. You kind of got the handle in the middle, but everything else is different. But again, if this is a primitive form, who knows? Let's see here. Did my computer freeze? Did my OBS freeze? No, it did not. Okay. Or if it did, it's fixed now. Is there a delay? Okay. Well, I tried. The other thing that I think this could potentially be is... Oh, where is it? Thank you, HHN Wiki. Okay, Josh, I'll show it again here in just a second. Like I said, something froze, so I don't know. We'll go back to it here in just a second. Where is the throne? Because it reminds me of the throne from the end of Icons, kind of. Not necessarily an exact match, but kind of close. Let's see here. Okay. Did this work now this time? Yeah, there we go. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but yeah, it kind of has this little bump in the middle. It's got the sides. I don't necessarily know if it's Fear's lantern unless it's, you know, a more overgrown type version, but aesthetically it does kind of give me the same texture vibes as the throne here from Icons Unleashed. There's one other thing. Oh yeah, or everybody else, or I can't take credit for this theory because I've seen it plenty of other places, but what if this rotting stone is what we've already seen in the ad? What if that is the thing that hatched underneath Universal and started to infect everything, so the museum ends up kind of being our icon house without being an official icon house? Or I guess I don't know, the theme of the year. Also, can you guys see Nyx's butt? Sorry if that's a little inappropriate. I can't control her. She's a wild child. Let's see. Yeah, what if this is it? Who knows? Let's see. I don't know. What do y'all think? Let me know. Okay, bye, Nixie. Alright, let me go back to chat here for just a second. The house that sounds the most boring to me always end up being the best ones. I'll get to that in a little bit here as well, Girl from Duckville, because I've got an anecdote about that later. One Tiny Life, I'm thinking exhibits where folk are demonstrating things like churning butter and cooking an open fire. Yeah, that could be interesting. You know, I guess something kind of like a Blood Moon / Roanoke type exhibit that opens and / unleashes something to the underworld. I think that would be pretty cool. Let's see here. The other thing that I was also kind of thinking, Josh is gonna hate me for showing this. Actually, this was the only okay part, but if you guys didn't go to Hollywood, they have this house called Curse of Pandora's Box, which I don't necessarily think is going to feel similar in a lot of regards, but kind of looking at the outside facade of this, and I'm just gonna play the first room because that's really all that's worth watching. IMO. I love you, John Murdy, but this was not your strongest year or your strongest house. I'm sorry to say. But I kind of imagine similar vibes to this. Also, I just realized, babe, you never went through this one, I don't think, so.
I have not.
So, you would be happy for it. But this is also a very Hollywood type vibe, if that makes sense. I've been going to Hollywood since 2017, and they kind of use this concept with their Monstrous houses. Like, everything about this room just oozes John Murdy's, like, tendencies and style, if that makes sense. But I really want to see something like that make it to Orlando, because that looks super awesome. Let's see. Yeah, so like I said, Josh, boo minus the first room. So this is kind of how I envision what museum is going to look like, or something similar. Now, I talked about Not Scary Farm a little bit earlier. I'm getting better at talking and typing. You guys should be proud of me. This is called character development, folks. So thanks everyone for sticking around. I really appreciate it. It's been a really stressful couple of months, and seeing all you guys here in chat and hanging out with me, it makes it worthwhile. So really, thank you guys. But moving on, back to the kind of Knots references, because they do some real cool stuff. I talked about how, you know, when this rotting stone, quote unquote, infects things, maybe we'll get to see that in action, where it kind of turns everything blacklight. Oh hey, my stream's on my recommended videos. Let's go. This is Cinema Slasher last year at Knott's, which was my favorite, which is the first time one of their new mazes has been my favorite in the year that it debuted. Josh said it was just okay, but we don't care about his opinion on Not Scary Farm. Kidding, I love you. But we're gonna change that when we go this year. Anyways, this was their first room. I don't know if this had any storytelling aspect or reasons for it, but it was really cool. And again, maybe this is just a West Coast thing, because this also very much reminds me of Hollywood. But I would love to see a room like this where, you know, the museum just gets engulfed in this, like, evil, blacklight, gross stuff. Like, oh, that'd be so cool, guys. And I am hoping. Let's see. I think that is everything that I had wanted to say on Museum. Before we move on to the next one on my hype list, is there anything else that you folks would like to add? I'll give you guys a few seconds and blah, 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 exist. What's funnier than blue paint? Red paint. Yeah, Josh, I know you were probably exhausted going through that haunt, but I always gotta rag on people, and, you know, I just love Knott's so much, and I love this haunt so much. So when we go this year, you're gonna learn to appreciate it, especially if it gets plussed in any way, shape, or form. Let's see. Let's see. Boop, 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 boop. All right, back to the tier list. All right, so S tier. I don't know how well this shows up for you guys. We're going to put museum with a theoretical, definitely cracks my top 15 of all time, which will be what? Top 15 out of 125 in 3.5 months. But I've got a lot of faith in the museum. I think it's going to be super great. Now, for number 2, second most hype, if you guys were thinking it was going to be Monstrous, you're wrong. It is Slaughter Cinema 2, which we're going to put in A tier rename for now, but we're going to go into a little more detail about this here for just a hot minute. Bro, I love Slaughter Cinema. Slaughter Cinema ranks at number 8 for me, of all time. I believe it's number 8. But it is so good. I'm so excited to hear that we're doing something like this again, where we're getting this campy concept, we're getting this comedy, this schlock. Because we've had funny houses the past few years. We've had, Yeti campground kills and all that. But we haven't had something that's just kind of like schlocky and, I don't want to say gritty, but schlocky, campy, gives you that kind of dirty feeling like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but, not as extreme. So I think that this is definitely a good call for this year to be the return of Slaughter Cinema. It's been, 6 years at this point? Excuse me. So I think that the timing is right. I don't think it's going to feel too new. I don't think it's going to feel too old. I think it's just right. And for those of you who, I was gonna say, the blurb popped up and then an ad popped up, so I lost my train of thought. For those of you who guys didn't do the first Slaughter Cinema, it was basically, I want to say it was 10 in the first version, little schlocky B movies. Each one of them had 1, maybe 2 small rooms that were just, it was literally like a meme compilation is the best way to describe it. It was like an unusual memes in real life. And we're getting a return this year. They revealed this at Midsummer Scream. I think that's what it was called. There's been so many cons that I don't remember the names of half of them anymore. But we're going to have 8 new movies to explore this year. We're going to be getting some callbacks to the original, which we don't know what those are yet, but I'm very excited to see them, and I hope my Amazon cannibals from Planet Hell make a return. But also, at least a spaghetti western section, and potentially a black and white section, maybe? I don't know if that was ever confirmed or if that was just speculation. But the one scene that was confirmed was Heavy Metal Hell in 3D, which is a perfect haunt for me. Now, if you guys have seen my countdown series and remember my thoughts and everything, I don't really like typical generic heavy metal type haunted houses at Halloween events. Like, I think it's one of those Cedar Fair ideas where it's kind of like when you think of a music haunt or something musical and Halloween, most people immediately think satanic metal, blah, blah, blah. So to me, it's kind of one of those low-hanging fruits, which is why I've really enjoyed that The Weeknd made it to HHN. I don't know if he's coming back this year. I'd believe a scare zone more than a house, but I don't have anything specific to talk about for The Weeknd's return. So I think doing something like this, like Heavy Metal Hell 3D, where it's very obviously a parody and they can just go so outlandish with it and do whatever, I think that's definitely the way to go. I keep talking instead of pulling up the pictures, but look at this guy. Look at this style. If I could look like this every day of my life, you guys would probably think I'm a lot cooler than I actually am. I've been asking my bosses for like years if I could get a mohawk, and all of them say no. All right, let's see. Let me pop back to chat here real quick. Ian Murphy at Cheese Movies. Horror Homie, welcome, my guy. It's been going good. We're just going through haunts for this year. what we may or may not know. I'm going through my hype list. Museum is number 1, Slaughter Cinema 2 is number 2, and we're gonna dive into what details we may or may not know. Josh, do I think Heavy Metal Hell will actually be in 3D? I don't know. See, I want to say yes, and I want to say it's been a long time since we've had a 3D house, so make all of Slaughter Cinema 2 3D, to be honest. I would, because it was what? Lunatic's Playground was the last one, I believe, in 2016, and that was so bad that we need a good 3D haunt to redeem it. So I would say maybe. I don't want to put all of my cards on the table for it being either direction, because I think that would be one of the coolest wild cards that Universal could pull, would be actually making this 3D. But I think it's going to be, if it ends up not actually being in 3D, I would expect something like maybe some cheesy projection mapping effects, kind of like Acid Assault, or like what they do at the parks with their themed entertainment shows at night. Maybe it's just something kind of like Dead Exposure or 2012's House of Horrors, where instead of being black and white, it's like the blue and red outlines, and somehow they can make a visual trick of that looking 3D. I don't know, but I think that it is going to be a really good house. The reason I don't have this as high as Slaughter Cinema 1 is just because I typically don't find sequels to be as good as the original. And that's not a slight at the designers. That's not me. Well, I hope it's not me just being a cranky enthusiast, because I try not to be. But it seems in my experience, not just at Universal, but every other haunts in the world as well, when you try and do a sequel, you try and do it bigger, you try and do it better, you try and do it crazier, and sometimes being reined in a little bit makes a better product than trying a bunch of new things or trying to outdo the original instead of just trying to do something really good. Like Nightingale's Blood Pit was a great concept in ancient Rome, but it just didn't really work because I feel like they tried to put the Nightingales everywhere instead of making it more mysterious, and they tried to up the gore instead of keeping it in the dark. Well, you know, figuratively in the dark, because that house was almost pitch black. But I feel like that might be a little bit of the case of Slaughter Cinema. You know, I didn't think Yeti Campground Kills was as good as Yeti Terror of the Yukon was in 2019, but I really hope to be surprised. There's a lot of great ideas, but there's also a lot of great ideas that might need some really weird execution that might not come together. But I think easily a top 30 house, Slaughter Cinema. Girl from Duckville, Cult of the Demon Baby was hilarious and scary. Yeah, Cult of the Beast Baby, not to be a know-it-all, was one of my favorite scenes of in that house. Such a good use of strobes combined with the mirrors. Perfect. Horror Homie, yeah, I saw that Monstrous was going to be at the top of your hype list. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. But I will, I guess, give a teaser that the only reason it's not at the very top of my hype list is because Hollywood set the bar, like, here with that haunt. Like, that would be like trying to say, you know, we're going to make another music, like, we're going to do like The Darkest Deal in Hollywood and make it even better and more immersive or blah, blah, blah. Like, they already pretty much did a perfect execution of that idea, so I'm a little worried to see how Orlando does it. And yes, Derek, Nightingale scared the shit out of me. First one scared the shit out of me, especially since I went through it alone. Second one, it was give or take here and there, but that one, like, static Nightingale that would pop out, or that, you know, you rounded the corner and they were, like, right there with the wind and water effects, like eating the horse, that was a great scene. That one got me every time. Alright, was there anything else I wanted to talk about for Slaughter Cinema 2? Oh, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to ask you guys, what is your... Don't break. What are you guys most excited for in Slaughter Cinema 2? Is it Heavy Metal Hell 3D? Is it a potential black and white section? Is it the spaghetti western section? Or are y'all hoping to see a sequel for a potential whatever, one of the haunts that we saw in the first one but didn't, or And we get to see it again. God. Not good at... Remember when I said I was good at multitasking earlier and I'm getting better? I lied. Can I... Sorry, I have a loud, annoying keyboard too. I'm making this poll real quick. I spelled something wrong, but I don't care. Yeah, vote in the chat. What do y'all guys want to see most? I also did that because I kind of want to see how it pops up on my OBS so I can make streams better in the future. And I know me awkwardly zooming in to try and see if anything pops up. Spaghetti Western? Spaghetti Western still got it. Okay, I'll have to figure that out here later. Spaghetti Western, 50% right now. That didn't work. Hey, Pixie, welcome. Yes, I hear you. Oh, Derek clicked wrong. Oh well. Spaghetti Western it is anyways. I mean, I did kind of mention this, I suppose, already with it being a sequel haunt, but I mean, you know what they say in Scream. You know what Randy Meeks always said. It's the sequel, baby. It's got to be bigger and better. And I'm hoping that we get that. Hi. Say hi, Nixie. If you come and snuggle me, you have to say hi to everyone. It's the tax you have to pay. Yeah, I gotta say, Spaghetti Western sounds great for me too. That's definitely my number one. Hey, maybe this will pop up now at least. Anyways, where was I going? Oh yeah, back to my. I don't.
She's trying to eat Kirby.
Yeah, it's well, it's Kirby. He'll be okay. He'll survive. All right, Slaughter Cinema 2.
Don't eat the hand. She licked the hand. She was looking at him.
Top 40. I think. Bye. I think Slaughter Cinema is going to be higher than that, but I think it's easily going to make it in my top 40. I think it'll be easily there. But I'm going to give it a little wiggle room just in case the, Icarus flying too close to the sun happens. But I don't think it will. I think this is going to be one of the best years of HHN, hands down. Now, what could possibly be slightly less exciting than Slaughter Cinema 2? Everyone in the chat seems to be talking about Monstrous. I've seen a few people talk about Goblins and Sweets, but I've also seen someone talking about Triplets of Terror, baby. Let's go. I am very excited. Very, very excited for this one. So, go back to... So the way I kind of envision this Triplets of Terror is kind of like Halloween and Psycho Scarapy Home for the Holidays. It's mentioned in the little blurb, which I didn't read the Slaughter Cinema one, but let's see here. But this is going to be taking place inside of a suburban town. Suburban, whatever you want to call it, neighborhood, there we go. You're invited to the Barmy Triplets birthday bash, but beware, they celebrate by recreating their family's murders. Prepare for a gory gathering. Well, that pretty much confirms that it's going to be the Gore House this year at the very least, which I think all of us were more or less expecting from that description here anyways. Everything, well, you gotta... Sorry. Multitasking, not good. But yeah,
Triplets of Terror, super, super awesome. So imagine this big suburban town. Imagine something like Blood Moon or Dead Man's Pier, where it's got that open concept. You can see different parts of it. It feels like a living environment. Now picture that as just your typical suburban, whatever, your typical suburbia. Whether it's, what we've seen in Trick or Treat or something a little more akin to the Michael Myers Halloween haunts. Imagine a big interconnected neighborhood. Talking about budget and all the stuff that comes with it, it's not really, at least I wouldn't imagine it's incredibly difficult or incredibly expensive to make a bunch of house facades. Now it is also theoretically speculated that this takes place in a rich, nice neighborhood, which would add a little bit to the scenic design. But I think there's a lot of potential for just a really cool open environment. I'm glad you've been coming around on Triplets, Josh, because people hated this when it was announced, and I don't understand why. I agree, Voice of the Boa. All the originals look fun and amazing this year. Stoked for it. And yeah, Horror Homie, about the middle of the list for me here too as well. But, I was kind of talking with Josh about this the other day when we were talking about the announcement, but the way I kind of look at HHN as well is, it's just like doing any type of, movie marathon or going to the movies or whatever. If all you're doing is going through these high concept haunted houses that have layers of lore, tons of different, creatures and stuff to remember, Easter eggs galore, it's kind of tiring. It's kind of, you eventually want to turn your brain off. You don't want to go watch all these A24 horror movies back to back to back to back to back. You want something as a nice little break in between. And that's kind of how I'm viewing, Triplets of Terror. Do I think it's going to be the most beautiful haunt of the year, even if it is this big open neighborhood? Absolutely not. Do I think it's going to be the goriest? 100% on that one. That one I will put money on. I think it'll be our Blood Moon in more ways than just the concept. But, at HHN, sometimes you just want to go through a fun little slasher haunt. You just want some cheap jump scares. You just want, the very basic essence of what a lot of people think a haunted house is. Just loud noises, fun costumes, lots of gore. Sometimes it's a great palate cleanser. So that's one of the other reasons is that I'm excited for, or I'm looking forward to this one, is it seems like a nice variety from everything. But it still seems like there's enough of a concept for it to not feel like a generic throwaway, but it's not high enough concept to be like, oh great, it's another one of those, where I've got to do all this research on lore and look for all these Easter eggs. Just gonna be fun. Yeah, Derek, people hated the art, but, at least it gives us a little more insight into the house. It gives us, these masks, which means that we're not going to just be seeing something like, Devil's Rejects, Firefly Family. We are more than likely going to be getting some creepy masks akin to, Trick or Treat or the Schoolhouse or, things like that. Hello, Pixie. Welcome back. Yeah, more hate for the art. Yeah, Will, I know you just want to watch A24. You're weird like that, but I am too. But I also love my slashers. That's why Scream's my favorite movie of all time. Yeah, I want to say, House of a Thousand Corpses / Devil Rejects meets The Strangers. I think having them as a trio is kind of a little bit too much of a blatant ripoff, maybe. But at the same time, this is kind of hearkening back to the old days of HHN for me, where they would kind of see a popular horror movie concept or, a well-known trope, and they just kind of did that, but without actually doing that, if that makes sense. Like how Seeds of Extinction was basically just The Last of Us without being The Last of Us, or Zombiegeddon was basically Left 4 Dead without being Left 4 Dead. Like, just as the first two examples that pop into my head after last year. Let's see, what else do I have? Oh, and speaking of, this is what I wanted to watch for this one. Nixie, you are not helping me. The way I look at Triplets of Terror is, before everyone
groans at me and gets sad or gets angry at me for mentioning this. Happy Death Day in the second Blumhouse in 2018. Was this a spectacular section or a spectacular haunt? Absolutely not. Was it, pretty good and kind of fun, even if it was basic? 100%. I can't say that any part of this was revolutionary, but it had fun jump scares that were pretty predictable. The sets looked good, but they didn't look great. And there was some pretty good, blocking and some few interesting scenes later on. Let's skip ahead here a little bit. But, even if, this was nowhere near the top of my list in 2018, I looked forward to going through Blumhouse so I could experience Happy Death Day every night. Even though I knew it wasn't going to be the best time of my night, I knew I wasn't going to be disappointed, and I knew I was going to see something that was, serviceable and fun. And this is kind of how I feel like Triplets of Terror is going to be at the very least. Happy Death Day also had this incredible parking garage scene that I really liked. Like, this blocking for this dude jumping out of the elevator and the parking garage column, like in the next scene or right around here. I really liked that. And I'm expecting Triplets of Terror to have a few of these moments, where it feels pretty safe, but then you get like a oh wow moment. At least I'm hoping. Yes, hi Pixie. Can you get your claws out of there, please? Yeah, so you guys, picture something like Halloween Kills. I know we want to try and forget that this requel trilogy existed after the last couple, but the one trailer for Halloween Kills that was just that extended scene from the movie where it's a one shot of Michael Myers just going through the town and just offing people in brutal ways. That's how I think Triplets of Terror is gonna go. One long shot, you can see multiple angles of everything, and that was a pretty cool moment. And if that can be recreated in a full haunted house, it would be really, really awesome. Oh, good point, Horror Homie. I didn't even think that it could be FNAF because of the party. Yeah, that's actually a good observation. I wouldn't have come to that. The overalls guy in Triplet Terror graphic is giving Deliverance Trailer Park to me. Yeah, One Tiny Life, I agree. I'm getting those same vibes too. Yeah, Derek, big, huge open air space. Like I said, exactly like Blood Moon, except for instead of colonial times, it's current suburban house. And Will, you are absolutely correct about that. And Josh, yeah, Happy Death Day was fun. I love the movies. Still holding out hope now that Chris Landon left Scream 7. Maybe he can do Happy Death Day 3 now. Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. But only final thoughts I have is, don't knock the concept. Everyone thought Blood Moon was going to be crap last year. I thought Scarecrow was going to be alright when it was announced, but, it was Scarecrows. There was nothing really original or cool about that. When I went to Employee Preview in 2019 for HHN, I had absolutely no interest in Graveyard Games whatsoever. I was like, we'll save this for last. It just seems like, seems like a madhouse, I'd rather do Depths of Fear and check out these IPs and everything before the lines get too crazy for those. And then what ended up happening with Graveyard Games when I finally went through it, at the very end of the night? Well, Pixie just stepped on the keyboard, but I had it pulled up to Graveyard Games being my number 2 of all time. So thank you for that. Thank you for messing up that transition that I spent so much time on, Nixie. I very much appreciate it. It would be the story of my life. Yeah, absolutely no expectations for Graveyard Games. Made no effort to try and go through it right away. Number 2 of all time, baby. And I don't think that's going anywhere soon. Absolutely stellar. Don't judge a book by its cover. Or its little blurb. So I don't think Triplets is going to be better than Slaughter Cinema, but I do think it's going to be a lot a lot better than people give it credit for. But then again, I also have a feeling it's going to be like Fiesta de Chupacabras, where I think it's incredible and everyone else just on it because I don't know. I don't know why people poop on Chupacabra. Stupid good house. Stupid good house. Yeah, Voice of the Boa 2, nothing special. Had a fun time going through it. It is what it is. Hi, Skull and Spooky. We love you. Welcome to the channel. I missed you. Let's move on to number 4, which still is not Monstrous, if you notice. Hot take here, controversial YouTuber time. We're gonna be going with Major Sweets Candy Factory. Candy. And what I kind of picture for this is more industrial than people might be thinking. You know, we just talked about Triplets of Terror taking place in a suburban neighborhood, so I don't necessarily think we're going to see that in Major Sweets. We kind of saw that in The Zone in 2021, so it's not something that really needs to be explored again in a prequel, and especially if we have, you know, a house that's going to also already have a very strong suburban vibe. I think there's a very solid chance this feels more like a factory. One other thing I have not talked about is house locations, which I'll do here in just a second. But Major Sweets is rumored to be in the Fast and Furious queue. That would make it the first original haunt to be in the Fast queue. Was it 2022 was Freaky and the Black Phone, and last year was Chucky. Even though Chucky was, you know, a pseudo-original or a pseudo-IP, it was an IP property, but they kind of did their own thing with it. All 3 of these mazes still have certain scenes that had to be with them, like had to be in them. Whereas Major Sweets, this is an original concept. They can utilize this weird small footprint and make a house that is designed around that. Excuse me, instead of having to, you know, force these scenes to fit into this footprint. So I think Major Sweets already has that big strength going for it. Give me just a second to, and with all of that brickwork that's around Fast and Furious, that's kind of already a perfect, you know, factory type of ambiance before you even get into the haunts. Rumor has it that the locations, or the flow is going to be a little different this year, maybe with the entrance by where the exit was last year, or maybe with the entrance and exit both in those tents. Who knows? But with that being said, that you got that big courtyard where you exit, that would make a great factory like facade area. So if you guys didn't go to 2011, which I talk about way more than is probably healthy. There's not many good pictures of it, but they had a house called Saws and Steam, which coincidentally was... We'll pull up on that. Which coincidentally was also a haunted house that was based off of a previous scare zone. But what Saws and Steam was some dystopian future where the only source of water was human bodies, so you went through this basically harvesting factory where your organs and everything would be drained of all liquid, and it was super cool, super industrial. So I think we're going to be getting some type of similar vibes to that. You know, we're going to find out that Major Sweets' candy isn't all it's cracked up to be. And going back to the Knots talk that we've been doing here a little bit, let's see if it pops up here. I don't see it. We'll do Waxworks. They kind of have a hallway at the end of Waxworks where you're like getting molded into being like a actual doll or figurine or whatever you want to call it. So I kind of imagine something a little more high budget than this. This is kind of like the outdoor outro, so it's not as heavily themed as the rest. But I would love to see something similar to this. I'll get to chat here in a second. I know I'm kind of falling behind. But the other haunt that Knots did that I think would be really, or could potentially be very similar, is one that called Dark Ride. And this is one that people, like, absolutely loved. I personally thought it was okay. Oh, I did Berry Farm instead of Scary Farm, haha. I personally thought it was just okay, but what it did really well is it had this dichotomy between, you know, the front of house areas and the back of house areas. I'm gonna try and skip ahead here because I don't remember this house as well as I... Okay. We'll start here while I jibber jabber. But it had this very clear dichotomy between the dark ride that you're going through, this very cheesy carnival, brightly covered, you know, Santa Cruz boardwalk or something type dark ride, your old boardwalks. And then you would go into the back of house areas, which is what's about to happen in this video right now. And those back of house areas were just creepy, they were dark, they had such an unsettling vibe, and you felt like you weren't supposed to be there, which was such a stark contrast to how much fun the actual, you know, consumer viewed areas of the attraction were. And I'm really hoping that Major Sweets does something similar to that. You know, you start off and it's the Willy Wonka ripoff, potentially, or, you know, it's this bright colored factory. You're going on the factory tour, everyone's all smiles, kind of like Leave It to Cleaver in 2009 as well, where everyone just got that friendly facade, this is the most magical place on earth, and then we cut through an access hallway or something, and it's just the bowels of the factory, the places that customers should never see, that we would never want to know about, and it's just terrifying, and oh, we just can't wait to get out. And then we do get out, we go back to the factory, and it's all happy, and it's all nice again, and Major Sweets is there telling us there's nothing to worry about, and then we go back into another grimy, disgusting factory area. You know, the workers start to realize something's not right, the kids start to know that we're trying to get away from them, and it just gets bonkers from there on out. So that's kind of the way that I look at... I saw BioShock in the chat, I gotta get to that one, because that's somewhere in the middle. But that's kind of the way that I am looking at Major Sweets. The major pitfalls are that, you know, it doesn't end up being as scary as it potentially could be. Maybe it's a little more industrial than it is fun, or maybe it's too fun and too campy and it's not gritty enough for, you know, what it should be. We're gonna have to wait and see. Oh, you're still in the hospital, Spooky? I'm sorry. I'll send you a message on Discord after this. Let me know your how you're doing and everything. I've been off today because I've been working on this. Speaking of, link for my Discord is down in the description. Feel free to join it, talk with me about HHN all year long. I'm definitely hoping to upgrade the server before HHN starts, so we can make it more of an interactive community, just between switching jobs, long hours, working on content, trying to get this studio built, everything I want to do for this season, you know, just learning how to Discord and be social media has been at the bottom of the list, so we're gonna get there. Yeah, Voice of the Boa, I think Major Sweets is going to be a big turning point for the Fast and Furious queue. This is gonna be like the Krampus. How Krampus was for Shrek, this is going to be that for Fast and Furious. Coaster Thrills, yeah, I agree. I wish Major Sweets was going to be more neighborhood than factory, but I think the itch is still going to be scratched, pun intended, I guess, with Triplets of Terror, so I think it's a justified reason not to be exploring that angle, if that makes sense. Skull and Spooky, good choice if Major Sweets is your number one. I think this is definitely one of the most that could go really good or really bad. Voice of the Boa 2, yeah. 2011, man, so good. You guys might be seeing a video about 2011 soon, but not for me, so stay tuned. Yeah, Josh, that Saws and Steam was BioShock without being BioShock. Which is why I'm sad it wasn't a little bit better than it was, but it was BioShock without being BioShock, and it was incredible. Wish there were some POVs of the opening room, man. That was sick.
Voice of the Boa, interesting. Second half of Sweets being where the failed experiments of his candy get dropped. Ooh, that could be cool. If you guys were in 2014 when they did Giggles and Gore Inc., it was this clown factory where, you know, clowns were made from, I don't remember if it was from what, but clowns were made instead of just existing, and they were these, like, demonic entities, and they had a section towards the end where it was the discarded, which was basically all of the clown experiments that had failed. Didn't really live up to the hype in that regard, but I think it would be cool, now that you mention it, to see something like that in Major Sweets. Horror Homie, that's a good list. Mary, Willy Wonka's favorite movie, so I'm very excited for Sweets. Yeah, I think it would be a little too ironic if it ends up being like the Wonka experience was in, wherever, Glasgow or whatever it was this year. I think it would be a little ironic, so maybe it will end up being pretty similar, but I think we're going to get more of the industrial vibes and less of the wondrous vibes. At least I'm certainly hoping so. Knott's has some great, yeah. Tooth Fairy was fun. I loved Doll Factory when I went in 2009 back in the day, and then I didn't go back till 2017. But like Grimoire, The Depths had great effects. Dark Entities is one of my favorite haunts of all time. Like, if it was an HHN haunt, would probably be top 5 for me. Like, Knott's is sung. I'm gonna do Knott's videos, I promise. I just need to get there. Skull, yeah, we'll talk about your hospital journey. I'll make that leg better myself if I have to. Want a Sweets food booth? I agree, Derek. After seeing the Meats one a couple of years ago, I think we're for sure probably going to get a Sweets food booth this year. Especially if Sting Alley ends up not being a scare zone, which it probably isn't going to be. It's probably going to be another food area. It would make sense to put that right there with the Major Sweets haunt theoretically being right there in Fast and Furious, and also as kind of an homage to the Scare Zone being there in 2021, 2022, whatever year it was. Matt, Major Sweets sounds like the house Universal has fun with. Yeah, I think anytime they can revisit concepts and expand on them, they always love it. Slaughter Cinema is more, a spiritual successor, still theoretically going to be doing its own thing and not just copying the exact ideas of the first one. But Major Sweets really has a chance to just go bonkers and go all out and just do some crazy stuff that with, a well-established property that people have been wanting to see come back. Plus, the other thing I haven't mentioned about Major Sweets, he's got a little boo on his hat. I don't think in person he had a little boo part of his costume, but on all the promotional artwork, he has a little boo in his hat. So maybe that's a retcon or something that happens, and maybe Lil Boo's origin story gets switched over to Major Sweets. We'll have to see. Voice of the Boa, Giggles and Gore alone. Oh, me too, buddy. 24 is probably the year I went the most. I think I went almost every night before they had the every night passes available. And we did like every single house every night. Like, I went through that a lot, and I did Giggles and Gore alone a lot, and it was so good. I agree with that, Skull and Spooky. I think Major Sweets is going to be the best and fast. I think they'll learn from their mistakes. And Voice of the Boa, yeah, I agree. You gotta test it to see what works. Like I said, I didn't think Shrek was that great the first few years. Tent 3 wasn't super great the first 3 years because it just had Blumhouse. B108 was pretty successful because they had Seeds and Monsters back to back. I don't think they really got weak until recently, but you just gotta get used to building or thinking in a way that things fit in the space, if that makes sense. Anything else I had for Major Sweets? No, I don't think so. Let's see. So we are going to keep Major Sweets in the top 60 category. I'm anticipating it to be one of those haunts that was like, you know, good, but not incredibly stellar to me. As much as I would like it to be, this is, you know, where I realistically think it may land. Because otherwise we would be putting everything in top 10 because that's what I want to see everything as. So I'm trying to stay a little more realistic than last year, where I was like, Last of Us is going to be the best IP I've ever done. Chucky's going to be the second best IP I've ever done. Dr. Oddfellow, well, Dr. Oddfellow was the best Icon House I've been through, but like I thought everything was going to just be top 10 for me last year, and I was a little disappointed with that. Skull and Spooky, you are an absolute legend. I think the only good houses in the Shrek building were Krampus and Case Files. I've been saying that for a minute. I shouldn't say the only good houses, but those far and away were the only, like, incredible houses. Halloween 4 was good, Asylum in Wonderland was aight, Killer Clowns was good, but a little meh. Krampus and Case Files were, like, S tier. SSS tier. I'm gonna miss it so much. I need a moment. Okay, we're good now. Alright, so that is Major Suites. Oh, is there Men in Black had House of a Thousand Corpses? Yeah, House of a Thousand Corpses was good. Took a couple years to get there, but I agree. Skull and Spooky, I'm gonna get to your most overrated house location here in just a second, because I think I finally want to talk about Monstrous, which I do think is going to make it into a soundstage. I don't think this is going to be a 10th haunt. Let me see if I can find a POV of this in Hollywood. So for you guys who don't know or don't follow Hollywood's event, every year John Murdy likes to do some house that tackles Latin America folklore, more or less. I should say as many years as possible. So they've done La Llorona, they've done El Cucuy, El Chupacabras, I believe. And now last year they did Monstrous, which was basically 3 different beast creatures whose names I'm not going to try and pronounce because I already have difficulty speaking, let alone streaming, so... But they had this very interesting angle where they kind of had... Let me switch over to the POV here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But they kind of had this guy out front who was kind of like your narrator. I don't remember what his name was, but he's kind of narrating these legends to you before you end up, you know, dying in the end, like you do in almost every HHN haunt. And then you would go through the 3 sections of each of these monsters. I'm just gonna let this play as I talk so you guys know what to potentially expect. I'm gonna show you guys this first, and then I'm gonna go to a haunt which I think we're more likely to see. I'm gonna... Skull and Spooky, I promise I'll get back to that here in a second. I don't want to forget what I wanted to say for this first. Where's what I had to say? Oh yeah, Josh. Hot take, Monstrous in Orlando gonna be better than in Hollywood? I don't know. And here's why I don't know. So, as much as I've ragged on some years of Hollywood's event for being trash, because they were, John Murdy's got a good team, and when they have the budget and when they can, they do some absolutely baller stuff. And one of those is an animatronic that you're gonna see in a little bit in this haunt. See, you guys think I could pronounce that name? Nah, not gonna happen. But because Universal Hollywood is in Hollywood, there's all of those, you know, effects artists, prop makers. Look at this beautiful creature. They have those people that work on Hollywood productions right there with them. Oversaturated market. So they can do this cool stuff. Or I shouldn't say they can do, but they are more likely to do it. And we don't really see things like that in Orlando. Orlando likes, at least in my experience, and from my perspective, Orlando likes to put a lot of the heavy work on the actors. Whether it's, you know, actors interacting with other props or actors just being the focus of the scares instead of doing maybe a more interesting or effect-laden way to do it. And I think that the way I kind of foresee Monstrous happening in Orlando, for better or worse, is kind of taking away a lot of these more unique scare setups and these animatronics and kind of replacing them just with either props or with actors in costumes. It's going to be very hard to kind of recapture. Of course, I talk about that, and then, you know, Hollywood does a spine rip that's pretty similar to Orlando. But, you know, I'm not trying to say this in a negative way. This is, as I said with Major Suites, this is me trying to be more realistic instead of saying I think it's going to be the best. But I think with this house coming from a place of passion with John Murdy, with this haunt doing a lot of things so fundamentally different than the way Orlando does stuff, I don't know if Orlando will be able to recapture the magic of this haunt, or if they'll be able to even imitate it. And I don't want to say that the house is necessarily going to be worse because of that, but I think it might be different, if that makes sense. Again, I am very excited for this Monstrous house. I think it has the potential to be good, but you know, how does a different team build upon perfection, if that makes sense? Because this is, you know, about as good as you can get. Oh, everybody, Pixie's about to bring us a toy. Let's see what delivery we got. Pixie. Oh, thank you. Oh, can I have it? Oh, thank you. All right, everyone, we got a little crow. Very good, Nixie. You chose the Halloween-themed toy to bring. Yes, I hear you. So for all those reasons, I don't know if Monstrous is going to be better in Orlando. Do I think it's going to be good? Yes. But I don't know if they are going to be able to capture the magic in the same way that Hollywood did. Let me go back here. Yeah, Orlando gets a bigger budget, but I think they're going to compensate for not being able to do those puppets and those animatronics with doing what Hollywood can't do, which is building bigger sets that are more elaborate. Oh, one other thing. I'm gonna make a poll here because I want to see what you guys know. What is my favorite type of HHN seed? Because it does relate to this haunted house. I've talked about it in my countdown series. I want to see how many of you guys... I want to see what you guys think. And I probably spelled things wrong. But which one do you guys think I like best? Do I like it when there's big outdoor scenes, like, you know, a jungle or a forest or going through the woods being chased by walkers? Do I like it when... Oh, my options went away and I can't remember which one was next. When it's big archaeological sets, like, you know, catacombs or Tomb of the Ancient, where it's like going through a temple and there's lots of history and stuff to look at? Or do I like it where it's something multi-layered cities, you know, where Triplets of Terror, Blood Moon, Carnival Graveyard even, Dead Man's Pier, where it's this big open area where you can see. What's my favorite type of HHN scene? Well, that runs for a second. Let me pull up what I wanted to pull up. Ooh, I haven't looked at the Hollywood version of this. Does the Hollywood have slightly better POVs? No, not really. But yes, you guys are correct. Outdoor scenes. I absolutely love outdoor scenes in haunts. I think those stupid, like, big camo netting draped everywhere, I think that stuff is great. I love it. I live for it. I don't know if it's because it reminds me of the Cedar Fair era or what, but, you know. Oh, can't show that part of this maze because that's going to get me in big trouble. That's why you guys can't see it yet. Let's see. Oop. But this is what I think we're more likely going to get with Monstrous. 2014's coming again, striking again, with From Dusk Till Dawn, which is also one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated haunts in all of HHN's history. There's not really a lot of good POVs, so, you know, these people tried, but POVs just weren't great back in the day at HHN. But I imagine it more like this. You've got a soundstage haunt, you're gonna have these big, outside of a big jungle, you're gonna have these big temple sets, these big 2 stories, just awesome ancient ruins, maybe kind of like Indiana Jones queue line at a Disneyland. That's what I'm seeing a lot of in this haunt. Maybe taking that Dusk Till Dawn, that temple approach, and kind of combining it with, you know, the feel of another 2014 haunt, I almost said Freddy vs. Jason, Alien vs. Predator, which kind of took place in this dense laboratory inside of the jungle, except for instead of a laboratory, you're going from these different environments, from this village to ruins and stuff, but it's got that same kind of, you know, narrative claustrophobic feel, at least in my opinion, or my hopes, I should say. Okay, I've been away from chat for a minute. Oh my god, I've been away from chat longer than I thought. Sorry, everyone. Spine Rip Scare is so overdone. Agree with that, Derek. Yeah, they always, I feel like we got it every year in Orlando. They're fun, but I'd like to see something different. At least in that one, they like ripped the full spine out. Yeah, Skull and Spooky, you hit it on nail right on the head. Characters are more aggressive, but generally Orlando has the more creative environments. Maybe not the more creative animatronics or effects, but they have the more creative sets, in my opinion. Yeah, Chupacabra was S tier, I agree, voice of the boa. Yeah, 11 behind 2x4s, oof. I remember that. Yeah, talk of this version of Monstrous being more jungle themed. Yeah, a little sad that it's not the Jungle of Doom. You know, I kind of wanted to be right on one thing and, you know, say that I got something right. But it's okay. There's still time for next year. Maybe this is the trial for how well we do a real big themed jungle inside. Because, oh, honestly, if they're like, if the facade for Monstrous is like the facade for Graveyard Games, except for it's a giant jungle with like ruins instead of like a graveyard cemetery archway, like, I'll be busting. I'll be honest, like, I'm gonna be crying. You guys won't be able to get me out of there. But, again, we'll see. I think this one's also rumored for Soundstage 22, which tends to have some pretty good sets, some pretty good standalone haunts, so like, it's going up against a good track record. And before we get to Goblins Feast, which by association is the only haunt left for me to rank on my hype list, you know, what was I gonna say? I looked at chat and I forgot. There will be rain. I hope so. I don't remember what I was gonna say now. Crap. Oh well, that's fine. I'm sure they'll get back to me. Also for Monstrous, I believe John Murdy did do a tweet. I'm not a Twitter person, so I'm not going to look it up. But I believe he did do a tweet that he kind of sent everything Hollywood did over to Orlando, like the design documents and everything. So that way they had an idea of the concept and everything, and not just POVs and whatnot to go off. So they will at least have a starting pad that's similar to Hollywood's in theory, and how far they want to veer off of that is something that I'm not entirely sure. And I also don't know if Orlando's going to keep the narrator vibe, if they're going to still have that character up front that kind of narrates the whole journey. I think it would be kind of cool if they did something more like Revenge of the Tooth Fairy, where it was kind of like, instead of a fairy tale book, it was like you were hearing an old legend from someone or an old fable, and they're kind of telling the story of these legends around the campfire, and we get to hear that type of narration going through. I think that would be a much better idea, but I don't know if Orlando will go for more narration or if they will just kind of abandon that concept. But I'm going for abandon, but, you know, it remains to be seen. Let's see. Now the question is, though, do I think this is going to make it into top 60, or do I think it's going to be lower? If I remember correctly from my updated rankings I'm working on, I have Universal Monsters as number 60, the first one in 2019. And I do think that Monstrous will be better than 2019's Universal Monsters. Yeah, I know it's a hot take. Everyone thinks that house is like the best of all time. Sorry. Fight me. I'm not cool enough to get the monsters, I guess. But I do think it'll definitely be better than that. Because Monsters was like 50-50 for me. So if Monstrous is better than 50-50, I think it's better than that. Maybe when I do some HHN head-to-head in a few minutes here, maybe that'll be a ranking that, or a thing that comes up. Or something similar. Mortis, will be not. Yeah, Icons was meh for me. Good idea, but, you know. And La Llorona, I actually really liked how Orlando did it. After seeing Hollywood's, 2 years ago, I still think Hollywood did it better, especially since they were kind of the OG. But I think Orlando's, like, really dark ending of, like... Well, I guess children getting eaten is kind of dark. But Orlando's, you know, you getting drugged underwater into the underwater realm. I think that is a pretty dark ending for Orlando, and I would like to see them go that dark again. So yeah, that just leaves Goblins Feast, and, you know, just because this is ranked 6th on my hype list doesn't mean I don't think it's gonna be good, you know. I've just never been into fantasy. This is gonna be the moment where I actually piss everyone off, including my wife, when I say I've only seen the first Lord of the Rings movie, and I thought it was just okay. I've just never really been able to get into fantasy. Yeah, she's giving me the finger. I've just never really been able to get into fantasy as much as I have wanted to. Dueling Dragons last year was a really good haunt, really great haunt. Incredible technology, especially in that first, you know, war room, whatever you kind of call it, where the two of them were fighting. But the scare tactics were just so plain, so basic. And I want to see them more elevated. I want to see something fantasy that actually scares me. You know, when they played up the fantasy creatures last year, the ogre was just kind of, you know, big and... What are you laughing at?
Sorry, Josh used your picture of your face.
Oh, my chat disappeared. Pinhead Larry. Oh, Pinhead Larry! Yeah, if you guys don't remember, you can see Pinhead Larry. Jesus Christ. But, you know, they have these goblins and trolls and ogres, whatever they were in Dueling Dragons. They're just these slow, almost like the walkers in The Walking Dead. They were just these slow, lumbering things that really weren't too scary. It didn't really do anything exciting. No fault of the actors. They just weren't given anything to do other than pop out. And I want to see that concept expanded on and improved on. And I think it is going to be with Goblin Feast. I think they're going to take all the criticisms that they got about Dueling Dragons not being scary last year, because I'm not the only one who thinks that. I know I'm not. And they're going to rectify it this year. But again, it's kind of like, you know, Spirits of the Coven, I guess. You know, people already kind of have this preconception, at least I do, that these creatures in Spirits of the Coven's case, it's witches, it's obviously different in Goblins Feast, but they just aren't scary. And you have to do a lot to reinvent this type of character for someone for them to be able to find it scary. You know, think of something like Hive from 2017, where they kind of got vampires way from being sexy and romanticized like they had been in all the Dracula haunts, more or less, and they were these ugly, feral, primal creatures. I need Goblins Feast to be able to do that to me for fantasy creatures, for the end of Wicked Growth that I really did not like that much. I know it's a hot take, but I'm sorry. It wasn't scary to me. And they need to do that for all the people who went through Dueling Dragons last year and said, fantasy's not scary, this isn't a stupid house, blah, blah, blah. They need to be able to pull something off that's going to make all those people doubters. And I think it's going to be something that's attempted with Goblins Feast, sorry.
but I don't know if it's necessarily going to be incredibly successful. Again, I don't think it's going to be a bad house. I think it's going to have some of the best sets, probably of the entire year. And I think it's going to have some really cool ideas inside of it. It's personally just not one that I can envision as being significantly better than anything I've seen in the past, if that makes sense. Let's see. One Tiny Life, yeah, hot take, or hot take for Goblins Feast being Dark Horse. I hope Goblins Feast is the Blood Moon. I love when these little sleeper houses come out and just knock everyone's socks off. I think that would be great if it was. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one who's never watched, or who's not Lord of the Rings. I spent like 5 years making some high concept fantasy theme park and roller coaster tycoon back in the day. And I have no idea where any of it is or all the custom scenery, so that's 5 years of my life down the drain. That's as into fantasy as I ever got. Snow White's Scary Adventures, yeah, that was actually terrifying. See, Josh, not the only one who thought Dee Dee wasn't super scary. Boa 2, or Voice Boa 2, yeah. Wicked Growth was incredible the first 2/3. Just as soon as it got to, like, the woods and then the witch's hut, that was okay. And then, honestly, the end and the pumpkin felt like a Six Flags haunt to me. Like, not saying that with hate, but the Pumpkin Lord's Lair could have been such a cool big place instead of just kind of a boring pumpkin, because Not Scary Farm did a house called Pumpkin Eater where you went inside a giant pumpkin and that was like half of the house. And they did that better as one of their worst haunts than HHN did at the end of Wicked Growth, in my opinion. Yeah, and with it being, I agree, Derek, with some of the stuff being reused. With it being specifically set in more of like a medieval tavern, a medieval pub, I think that maybe we could see some stuff from like Blood Moon make it back, you know, STP, or some of those kind of vibes, except for instead of colonial, we get it more stony and, what's the word? More stonework, more maybe foliage, if that makes sense. More foresty, more like Dueling Dragons Q, the ride. Hagrid's Q, whatever. But did I ever share my rankings for HHN 32? No, I did not, because I am a bad HHN content creator. Because I have spent I've spent so much of the last year being stressed about what videos to make and trying stuff and not liking the way it goes that I never got my rankings out in any way. So let me think real quick if I can get them in order. I will be updating the countdown series with all of these included in it, hopefully next month. I'm really hoping next month. So you will get to see more detailed explanations and memes in that. But Dr. Oddfellow number 1, Darkest Deal number 2, Blood Moon number 3, Exorcist Believer number 4. If this ends up being different than the countdown, don't crucify me. I want to say Yeti was 5th. Yeti Campground Kills was 5th. Dueling Dragons was 6th. What am I still missing? I can't remember. I'm missing one. I can't think of which one haunt I'm missing, because that's probably going to be my number 8. Oh yeah, see, Universal Monsters Unmasked, that was number 7. Dueling Dragons 6, Unmasked number 7, Last of Us number 8, Chucky number 9, and Stranger Things 4 number 10. Monsters was so forgettable to me that I forgot it was even at HHN last year. I know Unmasked was number 1 for a lot of people, but for me, Unmasked was, let's redo a bunch of scare tactics we've done in other haunted houses and just put the monsters on them, instead of let's create really cool scenes for each of these monsters that makes them shine in a way that they haven't before. That's just my opinion. It was good in places. It was definitely probably around top 60%, top 50% maybe even, but it didn't do anything that wowed me in the slightest. Let's see. So there are my rankings from last year for anyone else who is curious. Norman. Thank you, Josh, for the compliments on my rankings. I hope this video stands the test of time. And real quick, not to try and eat up more of anyone's time, but you know, now that this channel's growing, I think redoing this series just makes sense because I've grown so much as an editor in the last year, and when people get a first impression of me and this channel, I want that to reflect in my videos, and I don't want to be known, I don't want my most popular videos to be not the best reflection of me currently when I've grown so much, if that makes sense. You know, I don't want people to know me for my 4th video when I'm on my 20th video that's completely different. And hopefully significantly better. So after I get that series done, we're going to be plugging away trivia, knots, HHN 33, obviously. So many things that I have planned that I'm super excited for. And I just want to keep going. And if you guys weren't here, I wouldn't have a reason to keep going. So thank you everyone who's stayed on and tuned in and everything for all that. I still got a few more things I want to go over real quick. So we can go over IPs. I didn't know our top 5 were the same, boy. Let's go. I'm glad. Yay, people agree about Monsters. Let's go. Yeah, honestly, I said Legends Collide was the best Monsters house before, and that's a lie. It's Bride of Frankenstein Lives, and it's not even close, and no, I will not elaborate. You'll have to watch the video to, get more. I wanted The Last of Us to be number 1, but it just felt too much like The Walking Dead to me. The Last of Us did the exact same thing The Walking Dead did. It didn't do anything to try and differentiate itself in the environments or the scenes that were chosen, and that's why it was just a stinker for me. Yeah, I'm gonna make Voice of the Boa. I'm gonna keep doing what I love, but I also want to make sure I'm making content for you guys. You know, I'm me. There's only one of me. The shirt says so. Like, come on. There's a lot of... Excuse me. I guess burping. There's a lot of other great HHN content creators out there that all do a lot of really great stuff. Stuff that I couldn't do. Stuff that I'm not strong enough to articulate the way that they do. And I hear some of them make points, and I'm like, I wish I could have said that as good as they did. I'm the weird, drunk uncle, ADHD cousin that makes the weird stuff, and I want to keep doing that. I want to keep being the weird guy, the fun guy, the makes memes and puts loss in the first 30 seconds of his HHN ranking video. And sometimes it's hard for me to figure out how to do that. Sometimes I spend too much time trying to be like everyone else that I get behind in trying to be myself. And that's just kind of my whole life story. Not going to get into details and bore all of you guys, but, you know, I always encourage you all, find your own voice. Don't be like me. Don't be like whoever. Do what you want. And that's going to make you stand out, and it's going to make you feel good about yourself. That's my little, you know, happy soapbox for right now. Yeah, we'll talk about IPs here real quick. Let me pop back to the spec map V2 here. That's really tiny on my screen. But I think it's pretty much all but confirmed. You know, Ghostbusters, the big question up in the air is it going to be Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2, Afterlife, Frozen Empire? I don't know. I think there's a compelling argument for wanting to showcase the reboot and make something more effects laden. Like, we've talked about Dueling Dragons recently, and that first scene where there's the fire and ice flying. That's a great advancement that Universal made with their technology last year, and what would be a better way to expand on it than do something like that with Frozen Empire? Suppose they could technically still do it with the original Ghostbusters, but, you know, it makes sense, you know, build off the moderate CGI success with the bigger budget CGI sequel, to use an analogy. But then again, at the same time, you know, more people care about the first two Ghostbusters. That's more nostalgic for people. It's got more iconic scenes. That's going to be the bigger draw of getting people in the gate. So I think I'm leaning more towards it being the originals than the newer ones, but I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love to see something new. Quiet Place and Silent Hill has people going back and forth. The biggest thing I can say on that is I've been seeing trailers almost nonstop for A Quiet Place since the first movie came out. Whether it was for part 2 or day 1, which is just about to come out, that franchise has always been omnipresent on television or in movie theaters, I feel like. Like, there's always someone talking about A Quiet Place. And Silent Hill, I don't think, has that much to an extent. Silent Hill theoretically has a new movie coming out that not really anyone has heard any details on in a couple of years, and a lot of people who aren't gamers or horror fans know what Silent Hill is. A lot of people know what Quiet Place is because John Krasinski was in The Office, and people are like, oh, that dude directed a horror movie? Like, they have that's the draw, I think, that A Quiet Place has over Silent Hill. There's more going on with A Quiet Place in the last 5 years than a lot of people have ever heard about, than most people would know about Silent Hill having experienced in their lives. That was a very convoluted way to say it, which is why I say these other creators are much better spoken than me, but I think there's the potential with A Quiet Place to be a great sleeper hit. Awesome puppets, kind of like Hopper's Cabin in Stranger Things 3, with those big tentacles and I think there's gonna be so cool. You got that awesome cornfield scene where you could be running through the corn. We know HHN's done that before, and they're not gonna be putting corn outside, but they probably got a whole big soundstage to use for it. There's so many cool ideas for A Quiet Place that people just keep getting hung up on the fact that it's supposed to be quiet, which very easily could be accomplished just through the different volume dynamics of the different scenes, but I just think it's too big of a draw. I don't think Silent Hill, even with the Silent Hill 2 remake coming out, a potentially new movie, I just don't think it's big enough in the world for it to be one of those, we need to pursue this IP on a slower IP year, if that makes sense. Insidious, I 100% think is going to come. 5th movie just came out. It's been years since we've seen Insidious. It's one of those Blumhouse properties that is still semi-relevant thanks to the success of the series. There's enough of a legacy of it to build off of, and it's not going to just kind of be let's mash up some of our recent movies that haven't been that good or that well received is a better way to phrase it. Plus, every time Insidious has been at the event, it's been a mashup. I think the first one was the first 3 films when it came out in 2015, I believe. And they just kind of had every monster from every film getting their due. It was all 4 movies then in 2017 when it came for Blumhouse. So I think it makes sense this year with the 5th one having just came out and reintroducing the lipstick face demon and the Patrick Wilson family, because I can't remember their name, the Lamberts. It makes sense for this haunt this year to focus just on the lipstick face demon. Just give that one most iconic villain a majority of the house. We had one small room in every other Insidious haunt to his lair. It was a little hallway, you pop out. It was a really great room, but it was small. Now with Insidious, what they can do is they can make that realm a lot bigger. They can devote a third of the haunt, a half of the haunt, finale room. They can devote so much more to exploring the lipstick face demon's lair. And actually utilizing more than 1 or 2 scares of him, with one of them being the compilation scare at the end. So, 3 IPs that might not be really high on a lot of people's lists, but for me, I think there's a completely solid way all of these could be done. 100%. Let's see. And Universal Monsters is Universal Monsters.
you know, after Unmasked, I don't know what else. I don't know what route they would take. I don't know who they would put in. It's always a good, solid property. I'm still kind of hoping low-key that it's Abigail, and I get to be right on one single thing this year. But, you know, we'll have to see. Universal Monsters, I'm indifferent about. Babadook and Smile. Ooh, those would be interesting. One Tiny Life, my favorite drunk ADHN cult. Yes, thank you. It's gonna be my new... Oh, it's gonna be my words to live by. Made a mistake. I'm not gonna go on a FNAF rant for right now. I just don't really feel like it, to be honest. I'm kind of tired and I open in the morning. But I don't think FNAF needs to come to HHN. I think if it does, it'll be good. But considering the fact that it took almost a decade for the movie to be made because it was so difficult to get Scott and Blumhouse to decide on a strong creative direction, I can't see anything different happening for HHN. And that's not to put the blame on anybody, you know. If I created BioShock and I was going to be presenting that property to HHN, I would be very specific with what they had to do because that is so near and dear to my heart. But sometimes it's best for things just not to happen if there's not a great way to do it, if that makes sense. Honestly, I would have rather had no Last of Us last year than basically The Walking Dead 6 IMO. Okay. I think that's all I had to talk about for the most part. Excuse me. Oh, I do remember the one thing I was gonna say for Goblins Feast. It keeps giving me Troll 2 vibes. Like, not in a bad way, but anytime I see Goblin, all I can think is Nilbog, and all I can think is the terrible, cringy acting and all the just goofy concepts. And I think it would be really funny if there was even just a reference or just like a hidden Easter egg that made one of those wildly outlandish Troll 2 set pieces into like a gag or an Easter egg or something. Maybe you see a little like of those goopy plant pods in the background. But, you know, instead of actually being campy like in that movie, it's actually scary for once. You know, that's just me. But that's just me, though. All right, let's move on over to HHN head-to-head for a little bit before I log off here. So again, I don't know if this is in the description or not. Let me see. I know I definitely meant to put it there. Can I edit it right now? Oh, no. I don't know how to do this. It's too much work for me. Anyways, I will put it in there after the stream. Actually, I can just put it in chat. I don't think it will kick me out. Haha! So I highly encourage everyone to visit this website. It's basically the biggest user-submitted ranking of HHN houses, and my friend Josh that's been in the chat says his pet project. I'm so proud of him for making it. So cool. I love doing this. But it has a rankings, or a hype rankings on the first page. So currently, did I switch over? I did not. Haha. So currently, this is where they're standing at with Major Suites, Museum, Slaughter Cinema, Goblins Feast, Triplets of Terror, and Monstrous. Surprisingly, in that order. I'm going to have to fill in my own now. So we said Museum above Slaughter, easily. Not easily. Triplets above Monstrous for me. Museum still number one. Bay. Slaughter Cinema above Sweets. Sweets above Goblin. Triplets. I've already voted. Let's see. Here you go, Josh. Helping you get Museum all the way to number one. Oh, yeah. Hi, Pixie. I have to do my good HHN duty. I feel responsible. Okay, I think that's gonna be almost most of them. Maybe not. Okay. Oh. We'll do that one as the last one. So, I did my part. But, quick... Oh, you want your Raven?
She came back for it. I don't know if you... Hi, Pixie. Here's your toy. But yeah, if you guys just go to the main page, you can go over to... where is it? I'm bad at talking about things. You can click on advanced mode here, and you can select all the years that you've gone, which events you want to do, Orlando or Hollywood, or Singapore or Japan, which I always forget exists because I never get to go there. I'm gonna do some Hollywood ones actually for a little bit, and then all it's gonna do is give you these matchups, and you just select which one you like better. And the more people vote, the more definitive the list becomes, and the more we can show all those newbies how Nightingale's Blood Prey was actually the best HHN haunt of all time back in 2011. Yeah, as Josh said, plenty of quality of life stuff to come for this website because he's great at everything he does. But if you guys have any suggestions, I'm sure either of us would love to hear it. You know, this is a website for you guys to do your rankings. So we want to make it as awesome as possible. All right, let me do some Hollywood ones. I'm gonna start wrapping up in a little bit here. Probably gonna log off in like 10 minutes or so. So if anybody has any final things that they want to ask while I'm going through these HHN head-to-head whatever, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to do a few of these and then hop off and try and get a little bit of busy work done on these videos before I go to bed before work tomorrow. Anything else that I had in my notes? Not really. The biggest complaint I have about Hollywood is all the black walls. So many black walls. 2017, 2018, almost unvisitable in my opinion because of how many black walls there were. So a lot of the houses from those years are not going to do very well when I do these rankings. Insidious Beyond the Further was kind of like the Insidious 4 scene from the last Insidious haunt in Blumhouse, where whatever that person was like choking and they were like held up on the ceiling. They were getting like stuff injected into them or whatever. Like, it was gross. That was the only scene I remember from the Hollywood version, and the rest was just black hallways. And Exorcist Believer last year had a lot less black hallways, so that's gonna get the easy ranking for me. Stranger Things. Ooh, that's actually a tough one. So Stranger Things in 2019, none of their Stranger Things haunts were good. The best part of the Stranger Things haunt was that their underground tunnel section was like 10 minutes long, which is not saying anything compared to the rest of the haunt. But also The Walking Dead just wasn't scary. But I think I do have to go for the Walking Dead attraction because the sets were better and it had a little bit better effects even if the actors weren't as plentiful or as good, if that makes sense. Emperor Sephiroth, the Murdy staple, the Black Walls. I've heard they're cutting down this year. You know, again, I love what Murdy does. I love a lot of the stuff he does, but I can give him credit. Sometimes black hallways work because I get so tuned out that the jump scares get me. I will give him credit. Sometimes they work and sometimes they're a great palate cleanser, but there's just not a good, or they're, up until the last 2 years, there just has not been a good balance from 2017 onward, in my opinion. Hi, Pixie. I agree, Spooky. Originals sound better than more interesting than the IPs, but I also think the IPs sound good. They're interesting choices, but I think they'll be good executions. Now back to Hollywood. Poltergeist was in 2018 and had a lot of black walls, and Us was in 2019 and only had like 2 black walls. And Orlando's Poltergeist was far better. I think their Ghostbusters haunt was pretty good. Again, I don't really remember these as much as I remember the Orlando ones because I only went 2 or 3 times through each of them. But Hollywood's Ghostbusters at least had some really good scenes with black walls. Like there was one where there was a scene where they had like Slimer floating, and since the whole room was pitch black, it kind of sold the effect, kind of like the in-between without the 3D. So that worked, but it was not as strong as Orlando's in most other regards. Oh, and this ain't even a question. If you guys went to Scarecrow in Orlando, you know how good it is. Do I think Hollywood's was better? I don't know. I really don't know. What I did like about Hollywood's is that it felt a little more visceral, and I think their cornfield and their outdoor sections were more successful because they felt less gimmicky. And it was also, I don't want to say grosser, but you guys remember the cornucopia scene from Blood Moon last year? Before you went in the church, when you were walking through where all the bodies were being prepared, they had a scene very similar to that in Hollywood's Scarecrow, where it was like the family that lived at this farmhouse had been murdered by corn and stabbed by corn stalks and stuff, and corn cobs sticking out of them. So it felt very similar to that scene, whereas Orlando's, was more of just scarecrows popping out. There really wasn't any human inhabitants. Everyone was dead and gone by that point. But Orlando had far better sound design, but still an all-timer in Hollywood, for sure. Chucky Ultimate Kill Count, I think, is the best haunted house that Hollywood has ever done. Hands down. I talked about how John Murdy and Monstrous and La Llorona were clearly like passion projects for him. This is what I felt about Chucky. Chucky was a love letter to the franchise. Chucky Ultimate Kill Count in Hollywood was literally everything I love about Chucky and then some, and had so many great references and love for the franchise that, it just made me happy. Maybe one of my best IP haunts of all time, honestly. We're gonna skip over a little grossy boy here. But just look at, the sets were a little bare, but not as bare as Orlando's, but just look at all the animatronics and puppets and moving parts just in this one scene in Hollywood. Three animatronics. Well, one puppet and two animatronics, it looks like. Two puppets and two animatronics, just in one scene. And then, hi Pixie. And then you got a Glenn puppet. Oh, love it so much. Love it so much. I agree, Skull and Spooky. Little Nightmare's house would be awesome. Tier list? Oh wait, no, wrong one. Wrong one. Where'd I go? Skull and Spooky, I don't know which Hollywood year you would have loved the most either. Honestly, last year was pretty good. The year before was pretty good as well. Scarecrow and their Halloween were both solid. Let's see. Now question again. Us, Ash vs. Evil Dead. Their Ash vs. Evil Dead did have a good scene. It had Henrietta, the deadite, at the end. Instead of just being in a costume, they had her head attached to a rig on the ceiling. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. You can see me on the thumbnail. They had this cool scene. This Henrietta was awesome, but the rest of it was super black walls, and it was not as exciting, unfortunately. So I definitely got to give this one to Us because less black hallways. Evil Dead Rise. Horrors of Blumhouse. Let's see. Their Horrors of Blumhouse 2 years ago was not as bad. It was a little empty, but Evil Dead Rise is a more complete haunt. Cool puppets, really great sets, really scary, honestly. If you've seen the movie, you know the movie's scary, but Evil Dead Rise for me, man. The first Stranger Things haunt I still think was better than Ash vs. Evil Dead. And even though I think Killer Clowns was better in Hollywood, I do not say it often, but I think Hollywood's Killer Clowns from Outer Space, even with the black walls, was better than Orlando's overall. I don't think it was better than Exorcist Believer, though. All that build-up for nothing. American Horror Story Roanoke. So I talked about how in the early years there was lots of black walls. Typically there's always one year that did not have black walls absolutely everywhere, and first year I went, 2017, it was American Horror Story Roanoke, and it was actually pretty good. That was the year we had Volume 2 at Orlando, which I really, really liked, and I think this one was about on par with that one. Really good, only a few black hallway sections, really cool sets. Gotta give it to that.
Universal Monsters was really good. Holidays isn't bad. It's better than Poltergeist, though. It's like HR Blood and Guts, but with a little less charm. Now, let's see, want to look at the Hollywood rankings real quick, and then I think I'm gonna call it a night, everyone, unless you guys have any final questions. But just looking at the Orlando's rankings real quick, because they popped up. You guys got to get Darkest Deal above Dead Man's Pier. Come on, let's go. It's a very good top 5, though. I cannot complain about a lot of these. Blood Moon in 6, Poltergeist in 7. Interesting. That makes it, what, the highest IP that's not a fake one like Universal Monsters? Dead Waters, Us, and Scarecrow. Okay, that's a... Oh, wait, I have Hollywood's in here, too. Oh, well. Josh is probably going to call me out on this in a second. There we go. Not too much change. Pretty solid. Graveyard Games at 12, though? Come on, we gotta get that up. Slaughter Cinema at 13, we gotta get that up, boys. Let's do it. But I'm curious about Hollywood. I gotta say, La Llorona, probably gonna be number 1. Monstrous probably gonna be high up there. I hope one of the Universal Monsters houses is. And I don't know about the old days. Maybe... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some of their old, legendary Lycon houses will be there. Like Michael Myers, Texas Chainsaw, not Camp Jurassic, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. So let's see. Ooh, Us, Scarecrow. Okay, so it is mostly newer ones that have been voted on. Holiday, Scarecrow, Us, La Llorona, Monstrous, Holidays again. Oh yeah, their Last of Us was really good. Their Krampus was really good from what I've seen in the POVs. Monsters. Okay, so this is a pretty representative top 10 of at least the last decade, in my opinion. But yeah, I was gonna say they're probably more biased on the recent years, since that's what a lot more people have visited. But I visited the old years and I've played with this quite a lot. So, all right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in for this chat. I really appreciate everything. Really appreciate you guys spending the last 2 hours with me and hanging out and just shooting the shit about HHN. So I hope everyone has a good night. Hopefully I'll be able to get some more live streams soon. Hopefully we'll get some more announcements within the next couple of weeks, because, you know, June is, what, 8 days away, give or take? 7 days away? So maybe we'll start getting announcements sooner rather than later. Gonna try and at least do 1 or 2 streams next month, if not more, because I know it's gonna be a little while before I do start to get content out, because I just work very slow. But I appreciate everyone for sticking around. Hope y'all had a great time. I hope y'all are as hyped for Museum as I am. Going to be so good. And for your homework for next stream, I'm gonna hold everyone accountable to this. When I go offline, I want you all to type in HHN33 and find a YouTube channel that you haven't watched before. Any video, doesn't matter, whatever the first one that popped up is. Click on it, give it a watch, subscribe to that creator, so that way we can all get stronger as a community. That's my challenge, my homework to you, because I'm gonna go do that right now. Honestly, love you guys. Thanks for letting me do this. I'm tired and I have to be up early, so this is it. But I love y'all. I really do. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye. Go be good people. See y'all next time.